Hi Year 10s, today I'm going to be taking you through essay writing. We're going to be looking at text response essays and particularly with mouse. So that's going to be one of your learning tasks for this unit is to write a text response based on mouse. So let's look at how to do it. Alright, we're going to start off with looking at the rubric. This is how you will all be marked. We're just going to read through the level 10 criteria because that's what you all should be aiming for. So we'll start with the first row, features of literary texts. So at level 10, I can identify, explain and discuss how narrative viewpoint, structure, characterization and devices shape different interpretations and responses to a text. So basically this one is saying, it's asking us, how does the author use viewpoint, structure, characters, and literary devices, which is things like metaphors, similes, those sorts of things, to make the audience feel and think a certain way. All right, the second row is visual language. So that says at level 10, I can evaluate the impact of different choices in the representation of visuals on audiences. So this is asking us, how does the visual language, meaning the way that the story is told in the drawings in Mouse, how does the visual language that Spiegelman has used impact the audience? The third row is about analysing and evaluating. So at level 10, I can identify and analyse implicit or explicit values, beliefs and assumptions in the text and how these are influenced by purposes and likely audiences. So this one is asking us, how can we see what Spiegelman values, believes and assumes? How might this have been influenced by his target audience? How has he changed or expressed his values, beliefs and assumptions based on the audience that he knows he's aiming for or is going to have? The final row is text cohesion. So this is about your writing, okay? So in your essay, it's saying at level 10, I can arrange paragraphs and images. So images won't necessarily be relevant to us in this in this task. So I can arrange paragraphs to achieve different purposes, audiences, perspectives, and stylistic effects. So what we're looking for here is you need to ask yourself, do each of the paragraphs of my essay have a different and clear main idea? So you shouldn't be talking about the same thing or the same main idea across paragraphs. The second thing you need to be looking for is, have I used meal in my paragraphs? Okay, in my body paragraphs, have I consistently used the meal structure? All right. So the overall structure of a text response essay is that it needs to have an introduction, needs to have at least 3 main body paragraphs, and it needs to have a conclusion. When you get to do the learning task, you'll be given an essay prompt. You need to make sure that you unpack the prompt and think of 3 main ideas to discuss. These are the things that will become your body paragraphs. All right, so we're going to look at a sample one and we'll kind of unpack it together and plan out a possible 3 paragraphs for a text response essay. So our sample prompt is, Mouse explores how the Holocaust dehumanized many groups of people. Discuss. All right, so to unpack the question, these are the steps that you need to go through. So the first one is you need to find out what the question is asking. I usually do that by rewriting the essay question. Often you'll get a statement instead of a question and then a word like discuss, which is what we've got here. Okay, it's just a statement and then discuss rather than a question. I tend to like to rewrite it as an actual question that I can answer. That's the easiest way to go to number 2, develop a contention. So your contention is the answer to the question that you've just rewritten. Then you need to think of 3 reasons why your contention, your answer to the question, is right. Number 4 is think of any reasons why your contention could be wrong. So what are some issues with your contention? Number 5, they need to develop message statements for each one of your ideas. I'm going to show you how to do that later. And then you need to gather evidence and plan your paragraphs in detail. So gather evidence means look for images in Mouse that demonstrate what you're trying to argue, or quotes, things that people say, things that the narrator says. And then plan your paragraphs in detail means point out every part of the meal structure for each of your paragraphs. Then once you've done all of those things, you're ready to start writing. All right, so I have rewritten the essay question. the essay prompt into a question. So I've got now, how does Spiegelman show us that different groups of people were treated like animals during the Holocaust? All right, so now I'm going to develop my ideas. So this is where we come up with 3 different answers to the question, how does Spiegelman show us that different groups of people were treated like animals during the Holocaust? Okay, well, he shows us through the Jewish people being drawn as mice. Okay, that's a pretty clear link between the Jewish people drawn as mice and how people were treated like animals during the Holocaust. The second way that he shows us how people were treated like animals during the Holocaust is through the Jewish people being stripped of their identities and their rights. The third way he shows us that people were treated like animals during the Holocaust is through how the guards were dehumanized by their own actions. So remembering that dehumanized means having your humanity taken away. All right, so these are my 3 main ideas. Then we need to turn the main ideas into message statements. To make message statements, we need to do 3 things. So we need to use the author's name, we need to use an analytical verb, so things like shows, explores, highlights, suggests, contends, argues, any of those sorts of ideas, or those sorts of words, sorry. And then the third thing we need to do is obviously incorporate our main idea. So for example, I've just taken the first one that I had on that list. So he shows us this through the Jewish people being drawn as mice. So when we add in the author's name and an analytical verb and then add in that main idea, it becomes something like, in the book Mouse, Spiegelman explores how groups of people have been dehumanized through the depiction of people as different animals. Now, the Jewish people being drawn as mice is kind of our example. So we want to make it less specific than that. So instead of Jewish people, I've just said people. And instead of mice, I've said different animals. Okay, because it doesn't limit us as much. And then we can use Jewish people being drawn as mice as our actual evidence. Okay, so now I've done it for all 3 of these message statements. So I'm not going to read number 1 because we just did that together. Number 2, we've got Spiegelman also explores the theme of dehumanization through his depiction of the ways in which Jewish people were stripped of their identities and rights. Then number 3, Spiegelman not only explores how the Jewish people were dehumanized, but also shows how other groups in society were dehumanized by their own actions. Okay, so now we've got the framework for our body paragraphs. Actually, I should say as well, it's really, really important that you unpack unpack the prompt and create your message statements, create your 3 main ideas before you do anything with the introduction and conclusion. And that will become clear in a moment, the reason why. So introduction is supposed to signpost your overall argument or contention and outline how you're going to answer the question. So that's why it's so important to make sure you know what your 3 main ideas are before you start writing the introduction, because you cannot signpost your argument and you can't outline how you're going to answer the question. You can't outline your 3 main ideas if you don't know what they are yet. So you must plan out your paragraphs, your body paragraphs, before you look at writing the introduction. All right, so in terms of the structure, it needs to include the title of the book. So for us, it's Mouse. It needs to include the author, so Art Spiegelman, and it needs to include a link to the question or the essay prompt. You want to avoid characters' names. You want to really try and avoid quotes. Sometimes a quote might be appropriate, but often I would probably just try and avoid it. You don't want to retell what happens, okay? So you want to work with ideas and themes rather than examples. You shouldn't have any examples in your introduction at all. So these are the things that you need to include. So in the left column, we've got contention. So what's your answer to the question? Your first, second, and third message statements, and then a final kind of mic dropping statement. So you want to sum up what your argument is. On the right hand, in that column there, we've got some potential sentence starters. So this will be really, really useful for you when you actually come to writing your own text response essays. This is in a document as well, which your teachers have given to you, whether on Compass or Google Classroom or however it is. If you can't find it, email your teacher and they'll send you a copy, because this is going to be super helpful for you guys when you start writing your own responses. All right, so then we've got our introduction. we come to writing out our body paragraph. So there needs to be a minimum of 3. We've planned out 3 together. You can do more if you would like to challenge yourself, or if you've got 4 ideas that you think are all really important, that's fine. So you need to use the meal structure. So I put in MEAEAL, okay, because then we've got a nice detailed body paragraph which really explores the idea rather than just kind of running into it, quickly getting it done and getting out again. We want to really engage with our message statement and explore what Spiegelman has been doing in this text. So the extra EA is for your message statement or main idea, evidence, analysis. Then you put in more evidence and more analysis of that evidence, and then a link back to the essay question. You need to include specific examples and evidence. So these are things like quotations, historical context, literary techniques, which relates to the original topic. Same thing again. So we've got on the left hand of the column, we've got MEAL. Okay, so we've got some, I guess, the general structure of a body paragraph. And then on the right hand side in that column, we have some potential sentence starters to help you get going with the message statement. With the body paragraph. All right, once you've done that, you're up to writing your conclusion. So this is quite similar to the introduction, but we want to make sure that it doesn't sound too similar. Okay, we're summing up rather than introducing. So we need to outline the message statements of each paragraph. So you go through again what your 3 main ideas are. You need to make sure you're using different words, so phrase it differently. Typically your conclusion will probably be a little bit shorter than your intro as well. So try and use really short, sort of effective sentences. And please do not bring in any new points. There should be no new ideas in your conclusion. Okay, again, sentence starters for different parts of the conclusion. So on the left-hand side, we've got that you need to restate your contention and summarize your main points. You need to review the arguments, and then you have your final statement. So similar kind of structure to the introduction, but like I said, a little bit shorter, and you're summing up rather than introducing. Okay, now I would like you all to use this essay prompt to go through this PowerPoint again and see if you can unpack this essay prompt and plan out a response to this question. So the question is, no one can escape their past. How is this shown in Mouse? So go back to the beginning of the PowerPoint, which you guys should all have a copy of, and go through each of the steps and see how you go with unpacking this essay question, and even having a go at writing a text response essay using the sentence starters that you've been given. Good luck.